So he didn't ask you what ability we had in the area and what we could do?
No, I mean, he relied on both myself as secretary and on General Dempsey's capabilities. He knows generally what we've deployed into the region. We've presented that to him in other briefings, so he knew generally what was deployed out there. But as to specifics about time, et cetera, no, he just left that up to us.
Did you have any further communications with him that night?
No.
Did you have any other further communications? Did he ever call you that night to say, how are things going? What's going on? Where's the consulate?
No, but we were aware that as we were getting information on what was taking place there, particularly when we got information that the ambassador, his life had been lost, we were aware that that information went to the White House.
Did you communicate with anyone else at the White House that night?
No.
No one else called you to say, how are things going?
No.
Okay.
Turn to Benghazi, and I want to ask you about one lingering question, which is the president's actions on 9/11, the night of the attack, because we don't know very much about that. We do know that in the afternoon, he had an already scheduled meeting with Defense Secretary Panetta, as well as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Martin Dempsey. When he heard about this while they were in a meeting on an unrelated subject, he said that he wanted them to deploy forces as soon as possible. The next time that he shows up is that Hillary Clinton says that she spoke to him at around 10 o'clock that night after the attack at the consulate, not as it turned out at the annex, but the attack at the consulate had ended. Question, what did the president do the rest of that night to pursue Benghazi?
Well, look, the president was kept up to date on this as it was happening throughout the entire night, from the moment it started until the very end. And because this is this is a horrible tragedy. These are people that he sent abroad whose lives are in risk, people who work for him. And I recognize that there's a series of conspiracy theories. The Republicans have been spinning about this since the night it happened. But there has been an independent review of this. Congress has held hearings. We provided 250,000 pages of 25,000 pages of documents up there. There have been 11 hearings, 20 staff briefings, and everyone has found the same thing. This is a tragedy. And so the question here is not what happened that night. The question is, what are we going to do to move forward and ensure that this doesn't happen again? That's why Congress should act on what the president called for earlier this week to pass legislation to allow us to actually implement all the recommendations of the Independent Accountability Board so we can protect our diplomats around the country, around the world, because when we send our diplomats off into far-flung places, there is an inherent level of risk. We should do what we can to mitigate that risk.
But with due respect, you didn't answer my question. What did the president do that night?
He was in constant touch that night with his national security team and kept up to date as the events as they were happening.
When you say his national security team, he didn't talk to the Secretary of State, except for the one time when the first attack was over. He didn't talk to the Secretary of Defense. He didn't talk to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. Who was he talking to?
He was talking to his national security staff, his national security council, or the people who would keep him up to date about these things as they happen.
Was he in the Situation Room?
He was kept up to date throughout the day.
Do you not know whether he was in the Situation Room?
I don't remember what room the president was in on that night, and that's a largely irrelevant fact.
We've talked about sequestration, which is important, and I just want to make sure that we understand what happened on September 11th regarding Benghazi. Your testimony, as I understand it, Secretary Panetta, that you talked to the President of the United States one time.
Talked to him on September 11th with regards to the fact that we were aware this attack was taking place.
One time?
Right.
What time did you tell him that?
I think that was approximately about 5. Yeah, about 5. About 5 o'clock.
General Dempsey, did you ever talk to the President of the United States at all?
I was with the Secretary at that same time.
Did you talk to the President?
Yes.
You talked to him how many times?
The same one time.
How long did the conversation last?
We were there in the office for probably 30 minutes.
So you talked to him for 30 minutes, one time, and you never talked to him again? Neither one of you?
Until afterwards.
Until after the attack was over?
That's right.
Thank you.
Well, the point is, the question is, the premise of your question is that somehow there was something that could have been done differently, okay, that would have changed the outcome here. The Accountability Review Board has looked at this. People have looked at it. It's a horrible tragedy what happened, and we have to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Here's the point, though. The ambassador goes missing. It ends up the first ambassador in more than 30 years is killed. 4 Americans including the ambassador, are killed. Dozens of Americans are in jeopardy. The president at 4 o'clock in the afternoon says to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, deploy forces. No forces are deployed. Where is he while all this is going on?
This has been testified to by the...
Well, no one knows where he was or how he was involved or who told him there were no forces.
The suggestion of your question is that somehow the president allowed this to happen.
I just want to know what the answer is.
That's the assertions from Republicans here that somehow that the president allowed this to happen or didn't take action is offensive. It is absolutely it's offensive premise, and there's no evidence to support it.
I'm simply asking a question. Where was he? What did he do? How did he respond? Who told him that you can't deploy forces, and what was his response?
As I said to you, the president was in the White House that day. He was kept up to date by his national security team. He spoke to the Secretary of Defense and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs earlier, and Secretary later, and as events unfolded, he was kept up to date.